Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
Hi guys, welcome back to The Unfiltered Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Ashley Pollard, and today we are talking about the importance of email versus social. And the reason that I want to talk about these two things is because I do believe that both are important. You'll see me doing both, but I do want to talk about the fact that there's so many other ways to grow your business and to think about the marketing efforts that we choose to deploy and why we choose to deploy those. Now, the way that I view email versus social, and keep in mind, when I say social on this podcast, almost always I'm referring to Instagram. So when I'm talking about email versus Instagram, I almost feel that one tool is built for sales and one tool is built for marketing. Now, one of the important pieces that we teach inside the Doers Library with the resources we have there, or even in the club if you come to office hours or free office hours in our broadcast channel, is that I really believe in siloing your marketing efforts. And what I mean by siloing your marketing efforts is that I really want you to think a little bit more about what you sell where. For instance, your website doesn't need to have every single service. On social, we don't share every single offer. In email, we share offers that we don't share publicly. In the Doers, we share offers we don't share publicly. And the reason for this is because some things should live in some places and some things should live elsewhere. If you took a look at your offer suite, I'm sure there's some things that you would only offer to alumni. In that case, keep that in a services guide that you can share privately. Maybe there's some upsell opportunities or cross-sell opportunities. Maybe there's some offers that you have inside your product suite that are only available if you're adding it on to another service. For all of those things, we tend to keep those off of the website. But you might be wondering, how does that affect email and how does that affect social? Outside of website, I also want you to think about siloing there as well. Your social media, in my opinion, is kind of the place to convert first purchases. So when you think about using your social for those first purchases, how can you think about the thing that gets them in the door? Can you also view your social media as a place to nurture, to show brand values, to share your freebies so that email list builds up? Then in email, is there a way to kind of use cross-sell and upsell opportunities? For instance, okay, you bought the freebie. Have you been interested in one of these playbooks that we offer? Have you considered a VIP day with us? Would you like to book a call to talk about this more? That's why I like to think about each marketing channel having its own different job instead of selling everything everywhere. For instance, I'm sure you might be thinking, well, I have a call, I have a retainer service, I have a project, I have a download. How do I sell all of these things? And what I would recommend is sell the moneymaker and sell the first purchase on your social and let your email do the rest. The other thing I want you to think about with email versus social is that what we're seeing a lot of times is the volatility that comes along with being very prominent on social media. Whether we're talking about TikTok bans or the Instagram algorithm or shifts that we're seeing on Twitter, everything is always consistently shifting. And how do you keep up with that? What happens if your entire business is on one platform? That's why you'll hear a lot of email marketers talk about the importance of email is because you own that platform, just the same as you do own a website. Now, what you want to think about is the fact that social media is a game to always be playing. You got to stay up on the algorithm. You got to stay up on content. You got to make sure that you're always prominently making something that feels aligned with the brand. Are you nurturing? Are you showing who you are? Are you connecting? Are you being vulnerable? All of these rules that are just thrown at you by social media gurus. I might even be someone who throws some of that information at you. Do this on social. Don't do this on social. At the end of the day, it's a lot to manage. It's a lot to keep up with. And you have to compete in a way. Is my hook good? Am I showing up in the right timelines? Are people commenting enough? Am I getting enough engagement? And then you look at someone else and you think, well, shoot, should I be doing something like that or should I be doing something like that? With email, the really fun thing in my perspective is there's no algorithm. If I have a better subject line than Lululemon, you are opening my email. It's not this big game to play about is my hook good? And what's my lighting like? Do I have makeup on that day? What do I say? Do I need to check my inflection? It's such an easier puzzle piece to figure out. So for me, I loved starting with email. Email was actually my primary source of marketing when I first started. That's where I put all of my focus. And thank God I did because I learned the subject lines that my audience opens. I learned how to really connect through email. I learned how to use email the proper way and for my audience, not even necessarily by the book, but how did my audience react to things? Was it more picture heavy? Was it more text heavy? What subject line got an open? What should my from say? Should it say from Ashley or from the company? These are different things that we A/B tested. And so for me, knowing that I had my email to fall back on, there was a day years ago that Instagram shut down completely for 24 hours And I sent an email saying, this is why you need email. And I majorly discounted my email course. And I made thousands of dollars that day on a day that nobody else could sell if they were reliant on social. So what I want you to think about is, one, how can you silo your marketing? But two, how can you not fully rely on one platform? The way that I feel safest in my business is to have a marketing platform I own and a marketing platform that is there for visibility. Typically, you'll see that play out. My earring just fell out. Typically, you'll hear that play out by people dropping my earring. Typically, you'll hear that play out with email marketing versus social media marketing or Instagram. And to me, that's a pretty surefire way to make sure that you're set up for success. I have a client of mine, Tiffany Chaplin, good on paper agency. She does incredible work for the clients that she supports in a graphic design, web design, partnership kind of way for influencers and major brands. Such a great client of mine. And one thing that she said has always resonated with me, and I have to credit her because this is not something I came up with. She fully made this up. And what she said to me once was, email is owning your house, and social media, specifically Instagram, even TikTok these days, is renting a house. Now, there is no problem with renting at all. I rent. But the problem is that my landlord at any time could say, we don't want you to rent anymore. You got to go. Or, we're going to raise rates. Or, we're going to do this construction. So we've got to, shift the way you're living. There's so much control from someone else. Now, personally, I don't mind renting my apartment, but my content, that's my future. That's how I market my business. That's how I'm creating generational wealth. So for me, I like social. I like the visibility it gives my business. I like the way that I get to connect to the consumers and to all of you, right? Even here. But with this pool of social media and connection and visibility, I like to know that I also own a house, that I have a place to go back to in case my rental property gets a little iffy. Do you know what I'm saying? Knowing that I own this house, knowing that I have a space that I've cultivated and nurtured makes me feel so fantastic. Not only that, I have this house that I own. I have this email platform that has gotten me average 56% open rate, an average 20% click-through rate. And the reason for that is because the amount of A/B testing, the amount of studying we've done within our email list, I have two strong platforms that makes me feel really, really great. Now, what you'll notice I'm not saying is that I have a really great Pinterest account, a really great YouTube account, a really great YouTube Shorts account, a really great TikTok account. And the reason for that is not because they don't exist. We have a Pinterest. It blows. I don't recommend you look at it. I don't think I've posted there in 3 years. We have a YouTube. In fact, you might be watching us on YouTube. Hi, guys. Or my YouTube Shorts, where we sometimes keep it up, but not that great. TikTok, which doesn't exist for us. And the reason for that is because with the manpower that we have had, and that may change soon, but with the manpower we have had and with the resources we have available, I chose to go deep on two platforms instead of span us far and wide. Now, granted, we do have opportunities now and moving forward in the future where we can diversify that content. But if you are someone who's working alone, I'm kind of anti-repurposing everywhere. I think you can tell when people do that. Instead, I would recommend that you have a place of content that you can own and a piece of content that you can use for visibility, connection, and for those first purchases or those best-selling purchases. The third reason that I love email, especially if you're a private person or you're worried about how much to share on social, is that I can be very vulnerable in email. I have shared on my email some of the, let's say, issues my sister had in childbirth that I won't go into because I don't want to trigger anyone. The therapy that my family went through in order to get to a really strong and level place. I've shared the fears that I've had about the business. I shared a moment that I was bullied so badly online that I wanted to quit. I shared the moment that I was so scared about hiring my first full-time employee that I wondered if I was even making a good decision. Those are things that I really don't mind being vulnerable. Those are things, see, like I'm doing it now. Those are things I don't mind being vulnerable about, but I don't necessarily know how comfortable I feel putting that on display on social. Not for any privacy reasons or because I don't want people to know. Obviously, I don't mind if people know if it's via email, but mainly because I have insecurities too. Like, I'm a human. I feel worried about what people might think, or I feel worried about how strong I am and am I willing to take criticism? And it takes way more effort to reply to an email than it does to comment on a post. So there are some things that I just personally have to take care of myself where I don't post those things on social. Instead, I will put those in email where it isn't public. Sure, it can be forwarded. Sure, people could post it. Like all of that stuff is fair, but it doesn't typically happen. Posting it on social means that so many more eyes are there. And for me, I would rather you opt into my space, and I feel so much safer in my email where I get to be vulnerable. I get to tell those stories. If you're on my email list, you might see that every once in a while, I just sit down on my computer or send it from my phone, just a typed out email with no graphics and no formatting and all lowercase, just kind of talking to you guys. And the reason for that is because I'm a human running a business. I'm not some machine. I'm not some massive corporation. Sure, I have full-time employees. I have multiple businesses. We do well. I'm not going to act like we're some tiny operation or a sinking ship. We're a great business, but I'm a person running a business, and I don't want to lose that personal connection that I have with you guys. And so for me, using email in that way is something very powerful. It's something that I think is a really great way to nurture, but that's not even the point. It's not like nurture your audience with a fake vulnerable email. It's more like allow yourself to be seen and people will be invested in the mission. And that's kind of why I like email as well. Not just because it gets to sell things that I don't now have to sell on social media, not just because it is this really great thing that I own instead of rent, but also because of the way that I get to powerfully be vulnerable and connect with my audience in a way that just for me, I don't feel comfortable doing on social, and I'm entitled to that. If you were to get started on email today, first of all, what I would recommend doing, if you're not inside of the Doers Library, you could go in for the trial and just check out what we have for email, because we have a ton of stuff there. If you go in for the trial, download some of our stuff and leave, no harm, no foul. Girl, I've been there. Okay, we support you. But inside of the Doers Library, something that's really nice that we have there are subject lines that are pre-written for you. Do not discount the power of a strong subject line. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times people pour so much into the body of their email, but the subject line just falls flat. And it's like, who cares about the body of the email if the subject line isn't working? One of the best ways you can tell your subject line is not working necessarily is to track your open rate. For instance, if your open rate is in the trash, I would not change your emails. And it might seem super obvious, but people come to me all the time and they're like, how do I fix my email? My email open rate is so low. What do I change about the body copy of my email? Or should I change pictures or should I change links? And I'm like, if your email open rate is low, they never saw that content. They didn't open the email. So all we have to fix is the subject line and maybe who you're sending it from, which you can get creative with. I always love that. Also, there's some proven facts about playing with the from line, but we could talk about that another time. So play with your subject lines, A/B test things, try it with emojis, without emojis, try it serious, try it casual. I always like a bit of a hook, but I don't want it to be too obvious. For instance, I'm not the kind of person who wants to say you'll never believe what happened to me. And the reason for that is because I'm like, yeah, I know what you're doing. It doesn't work on me personally. Maybe it works on you and maybe you like that. By all means, to each their own. But find a subject line that works for you. I prefer to say things that still insinuate something juicy is inside without making it sound so obviously like a marketing tactic. The next thing I want to talk about is your click-through rates. What kind of click-through rates are you getting on your links? And if you want to test this, I would test links in buttons and I would test links in the body text of the email itself. For instance, if I'm writing a paragraph, maybe you hyperlink one of the sentences versus using a button for the hyperlink. That might tell you how your consumers engage with your email list. Another thing to test would be, how do you like images? How are images affecting copy? Are people reading all of it where they're scrolling down to the bottom with a button? Do buttons work at the top? Do they work at the bottom? What about if you use the PS line at the bottom? PS, don't forget to sign up for Connect and Convert whenever it is. So using those email tips, right? Making sure your click-through rate is working, making sure your subject line is working, making sure that from is really making it clear who is sending the email. Then focus on the body copy. But first and foremost, make sure that you get those three things right. And then lastly, what I want to leave you with is that marketing is the most important thing here. It's not necessarily focus on Instagram, focus on email, don't do email, do Pinterest, don't do TikTok, don't do email. It's none of that. What it really comes down to is have a place that you own, whether that's website, whether that's blog, whether that's email. I prefer email. Of course, we have the blog as well, which by the way, check it out. But of course, I love our email, but also have a place that you get to be fun and that you get visibility and that you get to nurture. And by nurturing so much in social, you get to rely on email to kind of make those sales for you. It's not necessarily that there's one way to use different platforms. It's more important that you're marketing your services. And marketing and sales are not the same. Marketing has to include the brand vibe, the mission, the ethos, the personality, how you're going to feel in that space. And a big part of that has to be without sales. And so that's why I like to use email for my sales space so that I can show up and have a goddamn blast with you guys on social. You know me, I'm just like a silly goose time over there. So that is what I beg of you. Consider email in a bigger way, especially in 2024, while everything is just so volatile with social media. What is a way that you can really control the content that you're creating? What's a place that you can make sales when you're not necessarily wanting to use Instagram or Pinterest or TikTok? How can you dial in to some of those email marketing tactics and really try to see how you use things? Whether it's Flowdesk, which I don't recommend, or ConvertKit, which I do, there's many, many, many different places out there that you can use email marketing, track those analytics, segment your list, and grow in a way that you have something you own in a place where you can feel safe and vulnerable, and also a place where you can have fun, where you don't have to necessarily be so rigid and you're posting like I am on social media where I'm just having fun, where you can connect with people and you can sell in both or in one of those channels. I hope this made you think a little bit. I hope that you consider more about email marketing. Make sure to join the Doers Trial so that you too can try out the 7-day free trial and kind of see all the email marketing stuff we have inside of there. We even have a massive document of pre-written emails for you so that you don't even have to lift a finger, and we hope to see you there. Before we go, I'm inviting you on my mission to help female entrepreneurs, okay? I am a girl's girl, and I want to see every single one of you empowered, living your biggest and boldest life. And the easiest way for people to access free information and a community of like-minded women is by sharing this podcast. Leave a review on Apple, rate us on Spotify. But more than anything, if you liked this episode, please take a screenshot, share it to Instagram, and tag us so we know that you are loving the content, but also other people can see that you are an entrepreneur who is focused on her game. Now remember, the motto of the Team AP space is, it's not hard, it's new. And if nobody has told you this, I want you to remember, you've got this. Entrepreneurship is hard. I love you. I believe in you. And I am so grateful to be in service of you, whether free or paid. And until next time, stay focused, babes.